Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 191. Today I'm chatting with artist Victoria Beyer. Victoria is a Chilean botanical artist living in Germany, so she's had the experience of moving continents, countries, languages and landscapes. In our conversation, she explores this experience and how drawing nature helped her get to know her new surroundings when she first made that move. We talk about the intricacies of botanical art, drawing and painting from live plants versus pressed herbarium specimens, the tools used by botanical artists, and most excitingly, we talk about Victoria's new work, which focuses on orchids to explore some really important themes of social masking, female identity, and belonging. Let's listen. Victoria, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to start at the beginning and find out and learn about your connection with nature and also your connection with art and how it all started. Did you have creativity and nature connection in your childhood?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, I grew up until I was 6 or 7 years old. I spent like half of the year in the countryside with my grandparents. And I had the luck to work there with my granddad. He had a lot of tree fruits, and I spent most of the time outside playing, climbing trees and painting. I've always been painting and drawing. And in fact, yesterday my mom was reminding me that when I was 5 years old, she was so impressed for my my apples. Apparently, I enjoyed drawing apples. And she told me they were so realistic and they even had a little shine
Really?
from the sun. Yeah, and she said that she couldn't believe that I never painted outside the lines, even in kindergarten. So, yeah, being outside, being in nature, and painting have been with me always.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Chile, and
Yes.
you can you tell me about the landscape that you were roaming around in? Can you tell me something of the Chilean landscape and the places that you spent the time?
Oh, yes. Well, Chile is a very particular country because it's very long, and we have a lot of different landscapes. So we have the mountains with snow the whole year, but we also have a very big desert, the Atacama Desert. And we have, the whole country has the coast with the Pacific Ocean and the cold forest, I think it's called in English, in the south. So we moved a lot. I lived in several different cities and I went to 7 different schools.
Oh, wow.
I lived in about 14 different houses, different homes. So, yes, I got to know my country, I think, pretty well. And my father had a big piece of land. He had animals and crops. And also my grandfather also had a small piece of land. So I spent a lot of time outside and, eating fruits and working in the garden and planting flowers and everything. And yeah, I think I missed that a little bit because here in Germany, everything looks pretty much the same. And in Chile, we have such a big variety. Yeah. You can even go, for instance, you can go to the mountains and have snow, but then you can come down and go to the lake and take a bath.
That is amazing. So nature was completely intertwined with your childhood, and it sounds like
Yes.
art is as well. And you said your mother was really impressed with the details of your early artwork. And I wonder if you had someone you were looking up to, a mentor, a creative guide, or is it just something that felt innate, something that has been inside you since the beginning?
No, I think it was something that I had inside of me, because no, I didn't know anyone who could paint or draw. My mom is a very creative person, but she wasn't a painter. She did other kind of things. So even if I didn't have a brush or a pencil, I would just grab like a stone and started to draw in the walls outside the house.
Yeah,
the trees and anything. I just find a way to doodle. And I spend a lot of time outside, like looking my surroundings and trying to draw the things that I like the most from it. So my grandma had a favorite tree. It was her tree, and it was important to her. So I sit outside and try to paint that tree because it was important for my grandma.
I love that these two things have been with you from the start, but also that they've been together, like nature and art together from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about the rest of the story. So you're Chilean born, you spent your youth enjoying this landscape and this creative expression, and now you find yourself in Germany. Tell me about this travel. It sounds like traveling and moving about was also part of your experience.
Yeah, but this is a completely different story. So when I was living in southern Chile, I lived in a small city, and there we were neighbors with a German family.
Okay.
And my little sister was friend with the little kids there, the two girls, and then I got to meet them, and I was friend with one of the oldest ones, and then the years go by, and they came back to Germany, and we stayed in Chile, and then they came back again, and then I met the older brother, and he later, like 4 years later, became my husband.
Oh, wow.
So we had no idea that was going to happen when we were kids.
Yeah.
And
that's magical.
After living a few years, being married and living in Chile, we decided that it was time for our son to meet the other half of the family, the other side of the family, and the culture and everything. So we decided it was time for us to come here. Yeah.
And where you are, what kind of nature do you see when you go outside? What nature do you have access to?
Well, now we live in the region that's called, in English, I think it's Hesse.
Okay.
Yeah. We are like an hour and a half away from Frankfurt. And here, I mean, you have a lot of hills, everything, a lot of hills and agriculture. So you see crops and animals, cows and sheep, and that's our surroundings. And we have a bit of forest here and there. In this area, there's not so much, but in general, in Germany, there's a lot of forest. It's so beautiful. It's so different for me. It's so different from what I know in Chile. So when we got here, I was just so amazed by the forest, that the one you learn in the storybooks for children, right? So, and there's a lot of castles and ruins and those things you don't have in Chile. So it was so different, and the plants, the flowers, the even the birds and the insects, it's everything's so different. And I was I was thinking, why when Germans go to Chile are so impressed by our nature when you have all of this here?
That's interesting. That sort of
Yeah.
cultural exchange or that wonder at each other's nearby nature. And it's a beautiful thing to do that, to go to a new place and to wonder at what's there. I wonder if creativity and nature art and nature journaling helped you come to know and get familiar with the nature in your new environment.
Yes, I think so. Because when we got here, I had, well, before coming to Germany, I had my art studio in Chile. And there I was teaching workshops in watercolor and oil painting. And I was starting to connect my art with nature. I was just in the early stages, let's say. So I was painting plants and flowers here and there, but I didn't know much. And I lived in a city, and I wasn't as close to nature as I wished. But still, I tried to do these connections. And when I got here, and I saw, we came to Leipzig first, and in Leipzig you have so many parks and green areas inside the city, and it was amazing. And when we got here, I had a baby and a little kid, so we went out a lot. I took them to the parks, and then I started to explore all these new plants and flowers and insects. And then I started to paint more and more of this, because that's what I could do at the moment while the kids were playing.
Yes.
I was there sketching. And one thing led to another, and then I ended up studying botanical art.
Yes, let's talk about your education in botanical art. I know that you worked a lot with herbarium specimens, but I'd love to hear the whole story of your botanical art journey and how it started and the training you went through.
Yeah, so when we got here and I realized I wanted to do more with plants and watercolor, and I tried to do it on my own, and it was very difficult for me to get this kind of realism and like more scientific approach to the illustration, and I couldn't. And then I thought, wait, I'm in Europe. I can get way more education than I did before in Chile, because we are very isolated there. It's like we are very far away from everything. So I applied to the botanical diploma from the Society of Botanical Artists in UK, and I got in, and I just couldn't believe it. I received this huge box with books and the whole instructions to learn.
Oh, wow.
It's a study that you can do by post.
Okay, correspondence course.
Yes, right. But it's difficult. Yeah. I have to say it's hard. And a couple of times I had to ask for extensions, because they expect a lot from you. It's a big, big commitment, and it lasts a little bit over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So
that's really intensive. And so you were asked to do various assignments. Did you have to post those paintings back to the instructors?
Yeah. You have I don't know, maybe 2 months between one assignment and the next. So you get one assignment, you read about it, what they expect from you, you do your research, you can choose whatever plant you want to, but it has to meet their criteria.
Okay.
And then you have to paint and do for example, you could be doing dissections or doing different studies, different views of your flower, or your even seeds you could use, or bulbs, for example. And then you use about 3 weeks in your painting and your practice, you work a lot in a journal. First, you have to take a lot of color notes, and in botany, you have to study a lot of the anatomy of the plant, and then you paint your final work and you send it. And depending on where you live, this could take a week or a month. So I remember other artists that they were saying they have like 1 week to do everything, because the rest of the time it's gonna be
post. Oh no.
Yeah. Sometimes they can get lost even.
Yes. Yeah. Did it feel really scary to put something you've spent hours and hours on into the post?
Every time. Yes. Yeah. Every time.
And then you'd receive feedback. What kind of things did they say? Did they say you have to position differently? You have to do details differently?
Yeah. They have this very deep, like, constructive criticism and analysis. There are like 10 areas they focus on, and they tell you then like a description of what they see, what they liked, and what they would have liked that you put there, something that you're missing, or some advice on how to correct something. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah.
Wow. And you worked some of the time on herbarium specimens during that session?
No,
not that one?
No, and not in that one.
Okay.
In the botanical diploma, you work from, I think, all of them or most of them from live plants.
Yeah. And live plants are a bit of a challenge, aren't they? Because they change. They change as you as you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
When you get let's say you decided you want to paint tulips, and you get your tulips home, and if your room is a couple of degrees higher, they are going to open and they are going to mature really, really fast.
Yes.
So you need to think of all of these details before you choose your plant.
Yes.
And how you're going to approach this little project before you start. So you need to always be very prepared. And you can place your flowers in the fridge, for example.
Oh, wow.
You can put them there. Yeah. Or you can tie them with a little bit of thread so they won't open. But what I did was I got plants in pots.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And during the night, they go outside so they can get the change in temperature they need, if they need it. So you need to learn about your plant species, what they need. And you try to reproduce that for them so they can last.
This is a lovely thing, because the experience of drawing and painting them helps you gather knowledge of the real growing plant, and your botanical knowledge increases.
Right. And you get to care for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had my apartment filled with pot plants everywhere, and I was checking their temperature and their humidity and if they needed fertilizer, because I chose this plant for the next assignment, and I already have it at home. So I needed to be blooming just at the right time for me.
And is this all things that you worked out, or did your trainer from the botanical art course sort of give you tips on caring for live plants, or did you just figure it out as you went along?
No, it's more like a mix, and we had different very experienced artists, and each of them, they would give you some sort of advice or a tip or a little trick on how to take care of your plants. Or maybe you can also use photographs as a backup, but you always need to have your real plant there. And also trial and error. And we also started a Facebook group with the rest of the artists, and then we were exchanging ideas or helping each other. Yeah.
Yeah, how wonderful. And I'm interested in knowing about botanical artists of the past, creators that have influenced you and sort of drew you into the field in the first place. Are there people that really influenced your work?
Well, yes, I think one of the first that got my attention was a French botanical artist called Reduter, I think. And he illustrated a lot of tulips that he had a very elegant style. He made the flowers so important and majestic. Yeah, and I loved that. And I thought, oh my God, I would love to paint like him one day. And then there's Maria Sibila Merian. Yes, and I read her story about how she was interested in insects first, and then she started illustrating the plants that were the environment of these insects.
Yes.
And I love the fact that she was a woman.
Yes, this is the thing, this rich history of female botanical artists that actually had a huge influence on the field, although there were a lot of barriers to females in this field in the past.
I think there were more than we know of, but yeah, it was definitely harder. Like any other job, actually. If you think about it, it was really hard for women to get to be able to work at something and be recognized.
Yes.
And have the opportunity of better themselves. It was very rare.
Yes.
So yeah,
makes
I
it
think
even
the most inspiring are the female botanical artists.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about the differences between contemporary botanical art and traditional botanical art and how they're different, how the field is changing over time.
Yeah, well, we could say that traditional botanical art would be the art that was done centuries ago, that was mainly created to identify plants. So if they found this new super exotic type of orchid, for example, they brought from Brazil to Europe, and they would hire an artist to portray it, to paint it and study it maybe, so they would know which one it was, to be able to identify one from another one, because in every family of plants you have several different species that can look like similar but not quite. And even for a thing of safety, if you need to know if the plant you have in your hand is toxic or not, because there's probably another one that looks very similar, but you can eat it. And if you eat the wrong one, you're going to die. So they did these drawings that were supposed to be very, very exact, very precise, to identify, okay, this one, the one that has let's say the leaves are a little bit rounder than the other one. This one is safe and you can eat it. And the other one is toxic. So that was the first intention with botanical illustration and art. And then it started to change. It was more for the collectors, the plant collectors. They would have these amazing gardens with exotic flowers, and then they would hire a botanical artist to illustrate their collection, and that was the botanical, like the classic botanical art, the one we see in illustrations, like the old illustrations. And contemporary is the botanical art of today, that's more about the beauty or the message behind the art, depending on every artist, of course. And it's often very realistic, like hyper realistic sometimes. And yeah, it's bigger, it's bolder, it's different. Yeah.
It sounds also like that there is this crossover with botanical art and science and illustrating for botany, and maybe contemporary art is more for the aesthetics rather than for maybe that.
Yes.
I'm just making up. I'm just
no. You're
I'm
right.
just chatting.
You're right. Yeah, because contemporary botanical art is more like fine art.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe a collector buys a piece of art, of botanical art, because they love that plant. That plant means something to them, or they love the artist, or the way the artist works, the light and the colors, and sometimes there's a lot of drama in one piece of artwork that you think, oh my God, that is just one simple rose. But when you see that art, it's so amazing. And yeah, the difference with the scientific botanical art, it's botanical illustration. It's for identification purposes, but nowadays it's not really popular. I mean, there are not many botanical illustrators working for an institution to do botanical illustration, but because it's not needed, not as much as it was before. So there are some botanical gardens that still do it. There are some amazing botanical illustrators, and they work with precision, but yeah, you wouldn't believe it. So yes, I took a course in last year in botanical illustration. And there I worked with pressed plants with a herbarium.
Tell me the difference between the experience of working with these fresh, vibrant, growing, changing live plants and the pressed herbarium specimens. That must have been a really different experience.
Yes, absolutely. It was so hard. It was our teacher. He's a biologist and professional illustrator. He was amazing with so much patience, and he told us, "You are going to get so many corrections from me, so just be prepared because you're not gonna get it the first time." And I thought, I don't know, maybe I can.
I will.
Yeah, maybe I will. And no, I got like I don't know, maybe 20 corrections.
Oh wow!
And yeah, it's so precise.
Yeah,
so precise, and it's very difficult to see this plant that has completely dried. It's flat.
Yeah, it's discolored as well.
Yeah, you need to, like in your imagination, you need to revive it.
Yeah.
And move back every piece and try to construct something and try to understand the volume. Yeah. And of course you get the name and the species and the variety and everything. So you do your research. And to try to see, okay, this part, what is this?
Yeah.
Because you say, is this like, what? Is this a leaf or is this something else?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, I think it was like 2 months trying to do this. And it was strictly done in pen and ink.
Okay.
So you get one chance to do your lines.
Was it line drawing or was it stippling? What kind of technique did you use?
Stippling.
Okay. That takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes a long time. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Actually, doing stippling, you just have to...
You need patience.
Exactly. But the difficult part is the line work. Yeah. Because you first need to do a line drawing. Once you have done your previous sketches and it's time for you to turn this into a final piece, your final illustration, then you need to do one line. Let's say your the stalk of the plant is very long.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do one line and you can't stop until you finish. So I was like holding my breath.
Yes.
If you move, it's going to show. It's going to be like a little dot of ink, for example, and then it doesn't work because someone else could think that black dot there is
it's
something from the plant. Yeah, so you can't do that. You have to start over.
Yeah, wow. I am wondering about all this precision and perfection and the whole field, really, like how everything needs to be perfect just for that reason, because you are representing the plant. You're going to put this out there and someone's going to see it and know that that's what the plant is meant to look like. I'm wondering how that makes you feel as an artist, and because a lot of people talk about how perfectionism or like needing to get things right is kind of paralyzing sometimes. And I'm wondering about whether you ever feel that sense of paralysis because you need it to be so perfect.
Yes. At first, no, I didn't feel the paralysis. I just felt like I needed to do everything perfect. And that was something, I don't know when it started, but it was when I was young.
Okay.
I was constantly trying to be better, and I wasn't, and I couldn't. I was trying my best to do things how other people wanted me to do, or how people wanted me to be, and I didn't realize that I was taking that and applying it in my whole life. So when I got to botanical art and I saw how perfect everything is in botanical art, everything, the paintings and the ink illustrations and the watercolors, everything is perfect. Everything is in the right place, the right amount of color, and I thought, okay, I need to be able to do this because this is like perfection itself. And yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why I got so caught up with the idea of trying to be a botanical artist, because it was the perfection I was looking for.
You were seeking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so interesting because in nature journaling, you often hear people say it's not about the pretty picture, it's not about that, and that people shouldn't focus on making pretty pictures in their nature journals. And I have talked about this before, but the more I go on, the more I realize that it doesn't have to be that, but it can be that. And so I never say that anymore. I never say it's not about making a pretty picture, because it can be if you want it to be. And it sounds very much like that thing. That strive for perfection is what connects you to presence and connection with the plant and something deep inside you. And I'm wondering about that, how that striving for perfection, how that striving for all the very detailed fine work helps you connect with nature and connect with that plant.
Yeah, I think it's the perfection I'm looking for when I'm doing botanical watercolors, for example. Is, to me, it's like out of respect for the plant.
I really like
because,
that.
Yeah, I choose a plant for a reason. It's not random. For example, now I'm working a lot with orchids, and there's a reason for it. So it's like my mission is to represent her as I see it, as I see her colors, her shape, and I don't know. I want it to be like a faithful representation. Yeah, that's what I want to use, perfection. But it has also been a negative thing for me sometimes, because so much perfection doesn't leave room for much more for creativity or flexibility. Sometimes it can get tiring. And I do have a journal, several actually. And when I'm feeling trapped in perfection, I just don't paint. I make a new watercolor book, a journal. I make it. And that's also kind of a process for me.
You physically you hand make the books?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I decide for what is this book, how is it that I'm going to use it? Is it for loose sketches? Is it for research or whatever? And depending on that, it's going to be the shape, the size, the kind of paper, even the design outside. I have one that I did embroidery.
Yeah,
embroidery,
wow.
it's called. Yeah, so it's going to be dependent on that. And so if I'm not painting because I'm overwhelmed by so much perfection, I just go find my journal, and then I can paint freely, and I don't have to show it to anyone.
Yes.
And, yeah.
That's such an interesting thing to have, that you speak about paying respect to the plant by representing it accurately, and there is some sort of tension in that, some sort of boundaries that restrict your creative freedom in a way, and that you can find solace from that itself in the freedom of your journals.
Yeah, because I want to keep doing the perfect version.
Yeah.
You say, as a tribute to that plant or that topic. So if I cannot do it, then I just go to this other side and do whatever I feel I need to do. And when I'm over with it and I feel like I have processed something and I feel better, and then I can come back to trying to be perfect.
Yeah. Would you say that your journals are where you are free to play? Would you use the word play with your journals? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the paintings are the serious and the journals are the playful.
Right. Yeah. And the experimentation. And I even let my daughter play there sometimes.
Yes.
She can paint, she can doodle. She brings me flowers so I can paint there. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's more relaxed. Yeah. There are no expectations. It's just like when I was a little kid and I was just painting anything that caught my eye. I just wanted to draw and paint it. It's the same thing. Yeah.
What drew you to botanicals? I myself am a plant person and I am drawn to botanicals, but I'm interested in what draws you to that as a subject for any, as you could have chosen any subject to specialize in. Why botanicals?
I think it's, because being close to nature and plants brings me back a little bit to my childhood.
Yeah.
And also I was already painting my surroundings when I was a little kid, so it's kind of similar. And I am not much of for example, there's a lot of people that are portrait artists. And even though I like to paint portraits from time to time, it's not my thing because I am not much of a people person. I'm more of I don't want to say lonely because I'm not lonely, but on my own. A solo person. Yeah, exactly. So I don't like much crowds or big cities or being always with a lot of people and friends or, so I'm more of a solo person, like you say.
Yeah.
And I like a lot being outside and being with my plants. So it's just the perfect combination. And if I can paint them and then hang them at home
bring them inside
and look at them. Yeah.
Tell me about your tools. Well, first tell me about what are the most important media and tools for botanical artists, just in general, and then the ones that are really important to you as a botanical artist.
Okay, so in general, for botanical art, I would say the majority of botanical artists work in watercolor, also in pencil, colored pencil and ink. But for specifically botanical art, you need to have some tools that you wouldn't use in other types of art practices. Like you need to have magnifying glass and a really good light, scalpels if you can, and tweezers, because exactly, if you're going to paint from live plants, that's like most botanical artists do, you need to have them. Maybe you're not doing dissections, but you need to handle parts of the plant, and doing it with your fingers, it's complicated and you could break something, so scalpels and tweezers and a magnifying glass, those are like basic tools. And then you have the typical things for watercolors, that you need to have a good set of watercolors. That doesn't mean you need to buy a set. Most sets won't work or are not necessary for botanical art. You need certain pigments and colors that will help you mix everything else. I have like in my palette, I think I have like 19 colors, but from those 19, I think I use 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I know just by memory, if I see, okay, that needs this type of blue, this type of red or yellow, and I tend to go always to the same pigments. So a set, this set of colors that I'm telling you, with your practice, you start to realize, I tend to paint more greens. So you build your set with different blues and different yellows, for example, and a few reds or a few browns. It's going to depend on what is your interest.
Did your botanical art training involve subjects of color mixing? I'm wondering how you came to the color, your relationship with color and color theory, and whether that was experimental or it was taught from your instructors.
I was taught to experiment. that was one of the assignments, and it was a thing that you do every time. So one of the first assignments we had was to mix colors, just for you to explore and realize, okay, those are muted greens, those are too strong greens, for example, too highly vibrant, chromatic. And you take your notes, and you have this your watercolor journal, and then just start taking notes on color and analyzing, and then you make your recipes. I call them recipes.
Yes.
So 2 parts this, 1 part this, half this, maybe water one time, 1 part water, 2 parts, and then you get this sample, and then you can take notes out. Okay, this green works for this leaf, this plant, and then you start learning. And if in the future you get another subject to paint and you are not sure how to make that color, you can go back. And check your notes. Until eventually you don't use them anymore, because you're constantly making the same mixes. You just know, but not at first. At first you need to help yourself with these color notes.
It is very much like a recipe book, if you explain it like that. So you could go back to your grandmother's favorite cake recipe when you were learning, and then once you've done it a bunch of times, you don't need the book anymore, but it's still that recipe.
Yes, very much like that. Yeah.
So you're working on a body of work, and I'm excited to talk to you about this because it is a bit of a departure from the botanical, the sort of traditional botanical work that you've done. It's exploring the topic of the symbolic connection between flowers, and you mentioned in particular orchids, with the human experience of social masking. And this is such an intriguing subject about how we as humans mask ourselves and hide and adapt in order to fit in. And you mentioned a little bit about being solo, but we do, in everyone in our lives, we need to go into society and interact. And I would love to hear you explain this body of work and this idea behind the human experience of social masking and adapting to fit in.
Yes, like I said before, I'm always interested in painting plants and not so much people. but it's inevitable for an artist not to use personal experiences in your art. It's very important. And when I was doing botanical art, there was almost no personal experience there. It was more scientific and artistic. There was also my background in nature, but it wasn't so representative, you know. And after finishing my botanical art diploma, I couldn't paint. I was totally, absolutely blocked. I think I didn't paint for a whole year.
Yeah, wow.
I just couldn't handle anymore that kind of perfectionism. I was drained, and I was getting into this crisis of living in Germany. There was the COVID, there was a pandemic, and I was really alone. And I didn't know anyone. I didn't have the language, and I was taking care of these two little kids.
Yes.
And I didn't know what to do. I felt really bad for a long time. And at some point, I realized that my problem was my own identity, and something I was running away from for always, like many years. And I started to do some research and trying to see how I can help myself besides going to therapy and doing all of that stuff. And then I realized, and I was very shocked and scared when I found out that I was actually neurodivergent. And even though I don't have a formal diagnosis, but I see the thing is hereditary, and I can see it back in my family, and I can see it forward in my kids. So there is absolutely no doubt, you know, and that was very difficult for me because I spent my childhood and teenage years and my early 20s trying to fit in everywhere I went. School, family, my first jobs, everything was so exhausting and draining for me. And I was always feeling on the outside, always. And at some point, I remember saying that this wasn't going to happen to me anymore and that I was going to change. In that moment, without realizing, I decided to shift and turn myself into what other people were expecting from me. So I changed everything, the way I talked, I walked, the way I dressed, everything, makeup, everything, jobs, the whole thing. And then becoming a mom, moving to another country, another continent. other language. Everything was so different.
Yes.
And I didn't know how to act here, how
Yes.
to behave. I thought it was going to be so easy because I so wanted to leave my country. I was so bored. I wanted to come for many years. And I thought, once I'm here, I'm going to be so happy, I'm going to thrive. But being here, and I couldn't understand people. And I remember thinking, but I know this works, or this other thing works. And then I found out this thing of my identity and being neurodivergent and understanding that is why I struggled so much when I was younger, because I couldn't understand certain social clues and human behavior. So many things were so strange for me. And I think that is why also I enjoyed so much being outside, playing alone in nature, with my animals. We had animals, and I loved that, and not being with other kids that I couldn't understand what they were talking about.
Yes.
So that was very hard. I was trying to process that and accept it, and it's really difficult to realize that your whole life has been just a struggle to fit in. And I wasn't so aware of it. I just knew there was something going on, something was strange, something didn't add up, but I didn't know what it was. So I was constantly like tweaking my identity to see if does this work, And here nothing worked because I don't know the culture. And I don't know how people behave here, what they expect from you. I don't know it, so I don't know how to act.
Because cultures, the norms in different cultures are completely different as well. So something that's very normal in one place can be shocking socially in another place. So you were thrown off balance, even in a world that was unbalancing you anyway because of neurodivergence.
Exactly. So I didn't leave my home, I think, for a year. I just went outside to pick up my kids and came back. And that was everything I did. And go to the park and paint. But I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't want to. I was afraid of people. And with the pandemic, more so, being close to people. So I just lived my life inside my apartment and started to collect orchids and other plants. But I had this fascination with orchids. They look so different. And I found they are so weirdly beautiful. They have the look is different. The way you take care of them is different. So I started to do a little more research about orchids and learn that they have very different adaptation and survival mechanisms. Some of them, they mimic other orchids. They mimic insects. They even mimic some fungus.
Oh, wow.
Yes. They mimic by looking similar to something else or smelling. They smell different, or they smell similar to something else, so that they can get what they need, which is pollinators. So I thought, okay, I feel
the story is overlapping here in your mind.
You're trying to imitate someone else in order to basically survive. But when I talk about neurodivergent women, and naturally women in general, we try to fit in. We are taught since we are little that girls behave like this. Or when you grow up, at least in my generation, when you grow up, you are going to go to college, then you're going to get married, then you're going to have kids. And that is the order of the things you're going to do. And you are going to be feminine, and you get told everything you have to do. And when you are a neurodivergent girl, it's even more like you need to smile like this. Yeah, girls don't do that. Girls don't like that. You need to like this and not that, and then you start to do it because everyone around you start to tell you that you are kind of wrong. And when I was 10 years old, I was wondering, why do I exist? What is the purpose of my existence? And I told my mom, I was 10 years old, and I told my mom, why am I here?
Oh, wow.
In the universe?
Yeah.
Why do I exist? I feel like physically, I feel strange in my own body. Yes. I don't understand my mission in this world. And my mom thought it was so cute that I was thinking like that. But it really was. And I couldn't understand that. And now, with this whole crisis identity thing and the neurodivergency thing and all, yes, I feel like I'm one of those orchids that need to mimic and adapt in order to survive. Like socially survive.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is painting portraits.
I can see one like behind you. It's amazing. So very large, a very sort of different from your other pieces, which are small and more detailed, done with a magnifying tool. This is very large and still very detailed, but so bold and striking.
Yes, and the idea is this portrait. Think of it as a woman.
Yeah.
And this orchid, it's beautiful in a different way. It's not your regular flower, and it's here with this dark background because she's coming out and saying, this is me and I'm amazing.
Yeah.
Just like I am, just the way I am. And that is enough, That's the idea.
How does it feel to be working in this really bold, different media because you're doing oil? How does it feel? How does it feel different, and how does it feel inside your body when you're working on this piece?
Oh, it's very different. First, because the setup to paint this size and in oils is very different from painting smaller works in watercolors.
Yes.
When you are sitting down and you spend hours sitting down and like a little hunch down painting.
Yeah.
And painting this big, and you stand up and you sit down and you move around. It's much more energetic. Yes, I like it. It helps me to be more active. I feel more productive. And I was very scared at first. I didn't know I was going to be able to paint my vision because I haven't used oils in like 7 years.
Okay. So
it was a little bit of an experiment. But when I saw this thing appearing, I was so excited. It was everything I was doing day and night. And I just couldn't stop. It was very intense, but positive.
And are you learning things about yourself and your own experience as a woman, a neurodivergent woman, and a woman in society by standing with this orchid and making this painting?
Yeah, absolutely. I still think I don't know, like the weird one, because I always felt that.
Yeah.
But it's my own weirdness.
Yeah.
It's
You're
mine.
claiming it.
So yeah, exactly. So I don't care.
Yeah.
So I think it makes me, of course it makes me different, but to me it also makes me special maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to fit in anywhere. Maybe I went a little overboard with it, but it's kind of like I don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, that's good. You can't go too far that way, I don't think. It's a wonderful thing to stand in your own self-identity and to say, hey, here I am, and I'm beautiful, and I am the way I am, and hi.
Yes. Of course, there are days that I feel like I feel the opposite, but I think it's, I don't know, over time you end up adapting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
just like the paintings.
Yeah, I love this series, and I love the explanation behind it, and particularly orchids, because there's so many adaptations in orchids to blend in, to mimic, and yeah, it's wonderful. I can't wait to follow your journey and to keep up with how it progresses.
Yes, thank you. I hope that there are gonna be many more orchids.
Yeah.
In the horizon.
Yeah.
I have 2 more, but they are not ready yet. And this is gonna be a small series of 3 artworks, so 3 big orchid portraits. But the topic of identity, oil painting, and flowers, it's gonna be there for much longer.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. And something big has happened this month in that you have released a watercolor painting class. I'd love to hear about that. And yeah, tell me the story.
Yes, so we did a collaboration with My Modern Med, which is an online magazine. It's a very interesting magazine. It's about culture and art, and they have their own kind of academy. And we did this course about botanical watercolors. So I chose to paint this small bouquet of tulips and daffodils. And what people are going to get from this course is basically how to start and finish a whole project of botanical watercolors.
Wonderful.
No perfectionism, but a sure step-by-step to help you do it. So it even has an introduction to dissections.
Oh, wow.
Because I talked about this with other people in other free workshops I hosted last year, and almost all of them told me it would be really nice to learn how to do dissections for botanical art, because there are no classes about it, and it's so interesting to open up a flower and discover everything that's inside. Yeah, it's fun and entertaining. Yeah, so that is one of the lessons inside this course. And also we are going to do color studies, how to mix and how to work with a restricted palette, like I was talking before. So just a few colors and how to do your composition the best way, how it's going to look better, your final work, your design. And I think it's over an hour and a half.
Fantastic.
This course, and it's already been released.
So I'll leave a link to where you can head to Victoria's course in the show notes for this episode, and check it out. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, there's gonna be a link for the course, and I also wanted to give you another link for a 10% discount for any of my works in my website.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's so generous.
And another thing that I did a lot of gifts. So another thing I did was a catalog that people can just download and check out, like a little magazine with images of artworks. And in my newsletter, I've included this whole story of how I moved from Chile, the cultural differences, the neurodivergence, the motivation behind doing this type of work, and all of that, like a story, for people who are interested in this kind of art and this journey.
That sounds amazing. So if someone signs up to your newsletter, that is a little gift that they'll receive?
Yes.
Fantastic.
They will receive that, and they will receive this 10% discount, and they will receive an art catalog.
That sounds beautiful. So I'll link all those things in the show notes so that listeners can check that out. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing this story. I feel really connected to this orchid series that you just talked about. I think it's really powerful. I love seeing it behind you, and I can't wait to share all these links so others can come on this journey with you. Thank you, Victoria, for being here with me.
Yes, and thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun and interesting.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Victoria. I was really moved by her work exploring identity. Orchids are such an amazing subject, and this parallel between the ways that orchids adapt to their surroundings and the ways that we do this as humans, and especially as women, navigating complex social spaces, is such a big and rich topic. I'm excited to watch Victoria's theme grow and evolve. If you head to the show notes of this episode, you'll find links to Victoria's website, socials, and newsletter sign-up page, as well as her online botanical watercolour course, where you can explore all the botanical lessons that Victoria mentioned, including the lesson on flower dissection and colour mixing. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.